Welcome, everybody. I'm Steph Lindquist, Dean of the Law School here at WashU. Welcome to those who are joining us on Zoom. I am really grateful for your being here and for our panelists today. Excited about the opportunity to have this conversation, which is really a dialogue between kind of the three ends of the triangle when it comes to legal technology and artificial intelligence and legal education. And that is legal education represented by Zoe, legal practice represented by Adam, and then legal tech represented by Christian. I'll tell you who they are in a second. But the idea is we need to have a conversation with educators and with folks out in the real world about what we need to be doing to educate our students and prepare them for a new landscape in legal practice involving artificial intelligence. And as Adam told me, I hate to steal his thunder, but I've used it so many times, I'm just going to do it again, that he believes that AI will not replace lawyers, but rather that lawyers who know AI will replace those lawyers who do not. And so there may be truth in that, although I think there's been some divided opinion in conversations of late as to what is actually going to happen. I don't think any of us know. So let me introduce the panelists. I'm going to be moderating today, and this will be, along with all of the events that we host here for Legal Tech Week, will be posted online as well. So for those of your friends who are unable to make it today, they can watch this from the comfort of their own couch at home on the internet. So first, I want to recognize on the panel Zoe Niesel. Am I pronouncing that right, Zoe? Okay, excellent. She's a professor of law at the University of South Carolina Joseph Rice School of Law. The University of South Carolina is my alma mater. So we are both Gamecocks. And she teaches a course called Drafting with Generative AI. My goodness, what's happening out there? It sounds like a hailstorm or something. I had the good fortune of meeting her at a conference in Florida, and it sounded to me like she was so advanced in terms of thinking about how to integrate these tools into her courses. I invited her to come to talk to us about it. I'm thrilled that she's here. Her scholarship explores the intersection of law and technology and innovations in legal education. She's published a number of articles, et cetera, but I'll leave that to your internet search. She's very impressive, and we're very grateful that she's here. In addition, on the very far end is Christian Puzder. Christian was on the very first panel that we ever held on Legal Tech Week last year. I have known Christian, it's been my good fortune for a couple of years. He started his own company, which he'll tell you about, and he went to Pepperdine Law School, and that's okay. That's okay. His dad went to WashU, and so we're all good with him and the family. In fact, his dad, I don't want to, sorry about this, Christian, but his dad is on our national council and is the new ambassador to the European Union, and Andy Puzder. So we're really excited to have this as a family affair. It's great to have you here as always, Christian. And then Adam Simon is a partner at Simon Law. He is a, Dad Bennett, that's what I thought. Why does it say Simon Law? Did you used to be there?
Get that a lot though with the last name. And I didn't catch that in there, so I'm sorry that I didn't correct the.
I'm so sorry. I knew you were Dow Bennett. I got confused. I apologize. But he represents companies across a wide range of industries and state. And you are a WashU grad, though, are you not? All right, then. I got that right. He represents industries in state and federal courts across the country. Dowd Bennett is a mid-size law firm that incorporates AI into its daily operations. And so we're really excited. In fact, it says here, adopting the mantra, AI will not replace lawyers. Lawyers that don't know AI will replace those that do know AI will replace those who don't. So thank you. Adam handles all aspects of litigation, from developing case strategy, conducting discovery, engaging in disposition motion practice, challenging class certification, et cetera, et cetera. And so he's really in a position to assess and evaluate the tools that are out there in the context of litigation. So we are just thrilled to have these three here, and I'm going to sit down and we'll start the discussion and dialogue, and then we'll of course open it up to our audience to ask any questions you have at the end of the hour. I also want to point out that after this session, we'll have a demo. We're having a live demo day in the Crowder courtroom with a series, I think, on every corner. Billy, do I have this right? At every, oh, Elizabeth will know. In every corner, there's a different tool that you can test, talk to the developers of the company, the representatives that are here about how it actually works. I also want to note that in partnership with Oliver Roberts and Wickard, we host a demo day. Were you ever in that? You were in that, right, Christian? In one of our demo days? We host a demo day we have 7-minute sort of quick introductions by tech companies about their technology platform and what it can do for lawyers. And so you might want to look for those if you're interested in learning about even more technology and how it can help us in the practice of law. So I will now sit and we will begin the discussion. So I'm going to open it up to the panel and whoever wants to begin. But I think the question that all of us have in law schools is, what should we be doing in the classroom to prepare our students to be the most advanced graduates in the understanding of the use of these tools and AI tools? And I think, this is moving so quickly that the technology is evolving so quickly that it's easy for educators who are in universities that can be a little bit insulated, not to be prepared ourselves for what to teach. So I wanted this panel to at least begin the conversation. Zoe, you're ahead of this in terms of bringing this into your classes. But if we could start with Christian and then work our way down to the educator about what should we be doing? Can you help us, Christian, think this through? I mean, you and I have had this conversation, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
I hope I can. As a former law student, used technology in the early 2000s when first day of law school, I think 3 of us had laptops. That was 1999. Now it's ubiquitous. Every law student has laptops. So there's a definite adoption of technology that needs to happen in what is a traditional academic setting. Having gone from law school, working with Westlaw, and now my own company, what I'm seeing with young attorneys is really a struggle to properly adopt technology as a tool. I liken it to legal research tools of Westlaw and Lexis back in the early days of those products, where it's kind of a struggle for attorneys to go from books to online legal research. Now everyone is doing online legal research. It's taught in law schools. AI, advanced technologies are a little bit different because they do so much more than legal research. So having law schools teach law students how to be comfortable with the tools, understand what the operational guardrails are, so when they get into practice, using the tools is not more expensive to their firm or their businesses. They're able to use them cost effectively and efficiently and get out of the tools everything that they can offer.
Adam?
So I like that Christian mentioned, kind of likening them to like Westlaw, because I think that's the starting point. I'm thinking back to my time here at WashU. You take a legal research class, and that is the first introduction anyone has to Westlaw and, how to do legal research with that tool. I think there's going to be a point in time where AI use in law firms is essentially equivalent to using Westlaw. It would be almost malpractice not to have some sort of AI that you're using in terms of the efficiencies that it can add. I think a lot of clients are going to not want to pay for those to be done by humans when AI can do a lot of it. So I think that's where it starts, is incorporating it into some sort of a class like a legal research, something like Zoe's teaching, actually drafting with AI. WashU has a ton of clinical courses, and to be able to incorporate it into those. Christian brings a good point that, it's more than just legal research. You can use it in so many different ways. So there could be opportunities in seminars, or I had a take-home exam that I had to do when I was here at WashU. Rather than taking the position of AI is prohibited, how do you incorporate it into those classes, understanding that people have access to it? It's a tool that they're going to use as practitioners, and rather than have it be off limits during the educational experience, how do you embrace it and build off of it? I read something about it in an English class where a teacher assigned an assignment where they required the students to use AI to write the paper or whatever it was, but then they had to come into the class and then edit it by hand, because that's the difference that lawyers are going to have going forward, is what is the delta between the work product that AI can help you start and where you can end. And I think AI is going to raise the floor of what's expected from practitioners, but also raise the ceiling of what they're capable of. And I think the difference we'll see in the highest level of, legal profession is where that delta is higher. And I think that's what you need to be looking at, how you can help people, students, achieve that sort of apex there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and it's one I don't think I have like a total monopoly on having figured out yet, but I am going to fight the good fight and see what we can do. Actually, having opportunities to talk to folks like Christian and Adam is probably among the most valuable, like hearing about AI in practice on the legal tech side, where those use cases are, where like our employers are hoping to see skills, I think is some of the most valuable things I can think to do as someone who's teaching in this space. But I've really approached it across 3 areas because I think, Christian, you raised something really interesting, right? We want to teach like general skills with these tools. And then Adam, you raised something as well. I don't think we're thinking tool specific teaching, but rather how do you have the skills, creativity, and ability to approach a tool that you have access to in practice and use it responsibly. So I tend to think of this across 3 bands. So one is, I hope my students leave my class with what I call the better than the average lawyer understanding of how generative AI works. So to the extent that they're using a tool, they can explain not maybe at the most technical level, but at least at the thematic level, like what is the tool doing? How does it generate the type of output that you see? Because that helps you understand both its benefits and its limits. The second is the ethical guardrails. So what does it mean for competency? What does it mean for client confidentiality? What does it mean in terms of your obligations to the court? So understanding that if you use the tools, there's this overlay of ethics that has to attach. And then finally is doing a lot of use cases that show where the tools perform well. So things like document summarization, document extraction, some statistical or data analysis, the generation of first drafts, the generation of legal research, and going through just a number of use cases. I think what I really hope is that when students leave my class, they are prepared to be creative in practice about where AI can help them and where it can bring value to their organization, rather than necessarily like, having just one particular tool mastered. I want them to think bigger about how they can bring that creativity and those use cases into a new institutional setting.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
And listening to these responses, I think one thing that law students should leave law school with is the ability to control what AI and advanced technologies does for them. And I just kind of had this random, maybe silly thought, but it kind of reminds me of the Terminator, where you've got this perfect autonomous AI system and it's let loose in Los Angeles and it just causes destruction until a little kid, John Connor, a human, comes into the cycle and is able to control that system. Maybe a strange metaphor, it's using fiction, but it definitely holds true that when people let AI loose autonomously to do whatever it wants, it's going to cause havoc. It's going to create citations. It's going to make up law. It's going to make weird, strange images. But when you keep a human in the loop and the law students understand how to prompt AI, how to ask AI questions, how to revise the output from AI, you're going to get a much better product from that advanced technology, one that's not going to wreak havoc on LA.
This human in the loop thing is hugely important. When you think about autonomous weapon systems, when there's no human in the loop, I get a little nervous. On the other hand, I don't want to think about law school as where you learn and train to become the human in the loop. I don't know.
Right.
So I don't know what to think about that, but that's a really great
Just
observation.
Controlling the system.
Correct. And yes. I guess one of the questions I have, and perhaps other faculty members in the audience do as well, is how do we choose? It was easy with Westlaw and Lexis. There were 2. Somehow that's the way it worked out. There might have been competitors early on. Maybe those folks in the audience might remember if there were, but I don't remember there being competitors, and you chose one or the other. Now we're faced with, this proliferation of tools. And I think one of the challenges we have at the law school is we've picked some of the big heavy hitters to bring in that are law centric. But how do we choose? Because at the moment, it seems to me there's sort of a settling of a competitive landscape, and I'm a little worried about choosing the right tools. As a case
case friend.
Yeah, choose my.
We'll start there. We'll start there.
My product.
Well,
Oh, go on.
you should choose his product if what you are doing is workers' comp. And that's, I think what we're seeing is there's a lot of AI tools that are very good at certain things. So I think you need to evaluate what your firm is doing. I think you need to evaluate what what your clients are looking for and find a tool that does those things well. I think there are going to be the generalists, just all things legal related, AI, large language model, generative AI tools like Harvey, I think is one of them. And then there's going to be ones like CaseFriend that do something very specific for a very specific market. And I think it's just going to be, it's unlike Westlaw and Lexis in that context where, you know, those two both do the same thing. It is,
Mhm.
you know, provide all sources, all reporters and everything like that, all cases. That's not what you're getting with AI. There's a smattering of very specific ones. Some of it's going to be dictated by, I think, what clients are doing. Some, because I think I'm seeing our clients starting to get subscriptions to certain things and we're using theirs. Some of them doing litigation, you know, we do lots of doc review. And so different doc review providers are having their own AI that's built into theirs. And so I think it's just being open to learning the multiple tools that are out there and then selecting what's right, given what you're trying to do, and understanding it's not going to be select one tool and that's it. And you're wed to that and to the exclusion of others.
But what about in the classroom though, then Adam? Because I mean, Zoe's, I'm sure grappled with this, but do we as a law school say, well, we're going to use spell book for all contracts classes? Do we, you know, what, do we allow the faculty members, and that places a burden on them because then they have to figure out what would be their tool of choice? What are we trying to achieve? Zoe, maybe you can speak to this and how you've chosen what to use in your class.
Yeah, the question is stressful for me because I think about this a lot. And because again, I don't really necessarily believe in training for a specific tool, but I do think about how do you pick a tool that has enough operational flexibility that you're teaching like generalized helpful skills. I mean, some of it is I think you use what you have access to. So for example, at South Carolina, we have access to enterprise ChatGPT. So unsurprisingly, that's what I use in my class. But I think in terms of like picking a tool to teach students like specific skills, I tend to put them in buckets. So I think of them as like a generalized drafting tool, like a ChatGPT, like a Claude. I think of like legal research tools like CoCounsel or Protege. And then I think of practice area tools like CaseFriend looks amazing. And I'm really excited that I can share information about it with my students. And I try to hit all three of those, again, with the goal being to inspire students to think about where AI can be helpful to them and to ask questions. Is there a tool that could do this work for me? What ways might that be? And then importantly, how do I assess the vendor? I mean, that's something we haven't traditionally taught in law schools, but I teach a class on how to select an AI vendor and what do you look for in terms of security guarantees and confidentiality and operationability. And I think maybe that's where it is, thinking that, you know, we have to pick a tool here, but helping them think larger about how they'll pick their own tools when they get out on their own.
How does that sound to you both in terms of what you need out there in the world for young associates to be able to do?
Yeah, I agree with both. There's two aspects of it. There's what the tool can do for you, and then there's the compliance aspect. So as a company that was searching, how can we integrate AI into our product? There are a lot of vendors out there that do not care what they do with your data. They don't care where the data warehouse is. They don't care how they transport it. And as lawyers, there's nothing more important to us than the confidentiality of our clients' information. So you want to choose a tool that can get the job done, but one that also works like an associate, a paralegal within the confidential boundaries of your law firm to keep your firm's data and your client's data confidential.
Yeah, and I mean, I think specific to the classroom, one of the differences is that kind of security piece, with the exception of clinics where you have clients, the briefing that's done in a legal practice class or a seminar is not confidential client information that is bound by that. So I think you have more flexibility in choosing something like a ChatGPT or some of the other even free versions of you know, the AI that's out there like Claude. I think in the educational environment, learning how to use it at all is helpful because those skills that you use in a chat GPT are translatable. And when you understand how the systems are working, how the AI is producing the output that it's producing, if you're learning that, then it's not as important that you've been trained on a specific tool because you have the greater understanding of what AI is capable of and what it's doing so that when you are in practice evaluating what to use for your practice, you can make a better, more educated decision then. But in the classroom, I think the more general ones are probably going to give more exposure to the students in terms of what AI is capable of.
Zoe, I like your buckets, and I think, I don't know what you've written lately, but I think offering a guide to faculty members out there grappling with this question, what am I know I want to be able to use this in the classroom in some way, shape, or form. What are my choices? And I think your 3 buckets make a lot of sense. And then how do I evaluate which choice to make within which bucket? And I think that's probably what law students, young lawyers are going to be doing as well, because they have to then make these choices. Adam, in your firm, as you see potential associates, what kind of conversations are taking place in interviews about artificial intelligence, if any yet?
I think the first conversations in that area have really been this last cycle of summer associate applicants coming through. We are getting asked by summer associates if we use AI, so I guess summer associate applicants, if we're using AI in the firm, what we have access to. So there is, I do think, some knowledge with the students of like what is out there and available. We've been asking students if they've had any exposure to it, and not as a disqualifying thing, more as a curiosity thing from our perspective. But it's just starting. I think right now, I don't think that it's not to the point where I think it's a determining factor for either us or the students at this point.
Well, from an educator standpoint, what would you hear in an interview from a student that would really wow you in this context? Because we're trying to wow with our graduates. So there.
Well, in my experience, WashU graduates are very competent. So I think, as with anything, just being at the forefront of it, having a demonstrated ability to use the tools that we know we're using. I mean, one of the first questions we asked students this last time around if their law schools were offering any AI tools, and I think some of our applicants were using co-counsel through Westlaw, and so some of them, talking to them, it sounded like they had more experience with it than we had, and so it's a tool that we've invested in, so we do want to use it, and so hearing that they had more than a working knowledge of it, I don't know that it was enough to on its own wow us, but it was definitely set them apart a little bit in that perspective from their peers they were also interviewing with.
So I have a question for everybody here that also, sort of comes from where I sit, and that is, you talked about how you can, Adam in particular, that you might have an assignment where you write using AI, you write the essay at home, and then you come in with the essay and you edit it in the classroom itself. So you demonstrate your editing skills. What worries us, I'm guarantee there are people in the audience who are worried about this, is how can you edit if you can't write?
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought you really can't edit very well if you don't do a lot of reading either. So I'm a big fan of reading, but if you don't have a lot of practice writing, then you don't understand where you see poor writing even in AI. Now, at the same time, it's not like at this point we're going to take away spells check from people who are writing in not word perfect. There is no such thing. Oh my God, I dated myself so badly right there in Word. So as how do we embrace AI while at the same time ensuring? Because I agree with you. I don't think we should simply tie someone's hands. We wouldn't have done that with Westlaw and Lexis. I don't think even when I was in law school, they forced me to go to the books and flip through the page after page after page in Shepard's. I could use Westlaw and Lexis. Like what do we need to force and what do we not? And what should we allow to happen naturally? Zoe, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually think there's like 2 sides of this, right? So there's having AI edit it, but you wrote it, and the opposite, right? You wrote it, but you have AI edit it. And I think actually both are valuable to look at. So I do a lot of exercises like this, like the one Adam referenced, where students will either write the problem on their own and then have AI edit it, or vice versa. They will write it on their own and then have the AI clean it up for them. And I think both are very, very valuable. That is an interesting question. It's like, where do we force this? And actually, I don't know that we do, in the sense that I've seen a lot of really cool organic uses just like appear. Like, if you are a WashU student in the room, you probably have some actually really amazing ideas on AI and where to use it in your legal studies or your legal practice. And I would actually really like to hear them. So please come find me when we are done, because I find that students are actually really good users and have really good ideas. I mean, I'll speak for myself just personally, maybe not even necessarily my institution, but I do feel an obligation to at least expose students to the basics of this, like how do LLMs work? Where are they performing well right now versus poorly? And then let's do a little bit of work with them, whether it's write a first draft with it or have it clean up a draft you wrote or something to at least get people exposed to the basic area. But I don't know that I figured out the fine point of this. I would be curious what Christian and Adam think. Like, where is that? I guess where is that bare minimum of competence that we want?
It feels like you're, you're leaping over over a ski jump, but what's going to fill the space? There's a space in there of learning that I'm worried we're going to miss. Yeah.
Well, not even just in the legal education environment, but also in practice. I mean, one of the discussions we had, and then if any associates from my firm are watching on Zoom, they may be surprised to learn. We considered, when we rolled out our AI, not giving access to it to our youngest associates for this exact reason. If we're giving it to them, are they just going to rely on it anytime we give them an assignment and not learn how to do the assignment themselves in the first place? So I don't know that I have a great answer for you in terms of, the law school environment, thinking about, the exams, and I don't know how you would use it, AI in an exam setting, but in exams, a lot of what's being tested is the issue spotting. And, when everyone has access to the AI tools in the real world, that issue spotting is a menial task that what separates one lawyer from another is how they can, what value they can add in addition to the issue spotting that the AI tool can do on its own. And so I think this is where, again, the delta might be narrower between the worst student and the best student, if we wanted to label them. But that's where the difference should be measured, is what is that delta beyond what can be done by the tool. And so if that's the issue spotting is something that the tool can do on its own, is it that the student is tasked with, something beyond that issue spotting to, adjust the hypothetical? How could you have advised the person in the hypothetical to avoid these issues, or something like that? The change from what AI can do on its own is, I think, what needs to be measured there.
The headroom that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Christian, thoughts about this?
I wish that the AI tools were around back when I was in law school to get started, because I think for me, the hardest thing is to have that blank piece of paper and where do you get started? I use AI tools in my business to start drafting things, but I still have to come up with that idea. So I think I like the idea of law students going out, having an idea, getting a start with an AI tool, and then having to demonstrate they have the skills to edit, revise, refine, and make that a strong persuasive argument in the classroom. But as that starting point to kind of get maybe a cluster of ideas out of your head onto a page, it's a great place to start, to just kind of put some gibberish into AI. I'm thinking about this. What do you think about it? Give me some suggestions. Take that output and then learn to revise that into a good legal argument.
Having drafted with AI, I mean, it's good at the big picture. It's good at the outlining. What it's not as good at is the nuance. And so thinking, again, to my experience here in legal practice, you're doing your open and closed brief assignments. Those might look awfully similar if you had everyone is using AI as a starting point. But I think there will be a noticeable difference between on the edges, that nuance that's added to crystallize an argument, to maybe make a novel argument. I think those would stand out. And again, back to that delta, you're going to have a narrower band, but I think still be able to see that difference.
I have
Go
some
ahead.
interesting anecdotal evidence on this, so totally non-scientific, but I was on campus yesterday and I got a really good question from someone, which is, if you let students use AI in your class, do you just end up with a bunch of cookie cutter work product at the end? Like if you have them draft a memo, do you just get 20 memos that are essentially all the same and there's really no way to grade them because there's no distinction? And that has not been my experience. I am still getting a spread of performance across the assignments. And there's something I think actually really beautiful about that because it shows that creativity still matters. I think some skill with the tool matters. Writing still matters. Tone, readability still matters. And there are people who are taking the AI work product and doing even more with it. And I think that's really cool to see. But also I find it beautiful because for those maybe who still are kind of ending up kind of on the lower band of that performance, you can have a much more sophisticated conversation about it because you're not just saying, well, there's a bunch of typos, well, there's misspellings, well, this transition is awkward. You can actually really get into the heart of, well, why didn't we develop this point more? Here we go, let's work off of this. And so since you are kind of like raising the tide for all the boats, like you really get that opportunity, I think, to have better conversations.
Well, I think that is really heartwarming, Zoe. I'm not kidding. I'm really grateful for that because I think that makes those of us who think, you sort of wonder in terms of technological advancements, is this like the calculator? I mean, there's the debate right now that do we have to teach grade school children how to add when there's a calculator? Is this just a way to leapfrog over sort of dumb mistakes and typos and grammatical errors that take a lot of time and we don't have to mess with if we could mess with the higher order thinking? And on that point, I want to ask, if this is going to kind of leapfrog lawyers into this more sophisticated, strategic, creative thinking mode, does that mean that we'll need fewer lawyers? Now, one of the perspectives yesterday that a judge on a panel took was that there is an infinite well of legal matters to pursue in this country, or maybe on this globe, and that there's always space for more lawyers, even more creative ones, and the work will be there, and so we will not lose employment in the legal profession. I wonder, though, what will we lose? I assume we'll lose paralegal opportunities, law clerks maybe, I don't know, but I want to hear what you think about this.
If I can start with the answer, so my product, Case Friend, we serve work comp defense attorneys. And what happened during COVID was business slowed down. And I think market forces on what will drive litigation and what will drive legal matters will have a bigger influence on the number of attorneys. So now all my customer firms are hiring like mad because business has really picked up in the past 2 years. So now they need more attorneys. But I think your point is correct. The paralegals are going to become more efficient. The legal assistants are going to become more efficient. And we might kind of lose that stream as a feeder into law school.
Well, the point what the judge made is that when Lexis and Westlaw came online, it didn't cause, although I don't know the data here, but he claimed that it did not cause a reduction in lawyers being hired by law firms, even though legal research suddenly became a whole lot more efficient. So
Yeah, I think attorneys working on Saturdays probably stopped when Westlaw and Lexis.
not when I was practicing law.
It has not stopped. Oh, it hasn't not stopped.
Adam, thoughts about this?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this one. So I was reading something recently and I didn't check the sources, so I can't guarantee its accuracy, but it was talking about the variety of AI tools in radiology. And there's a bunch of them and they're all very specific. This tool can identify, I don't know, cancerous nodules. This one can do something else. And what they were saying was that there was someone who was saying, well, we need to stop training radiologists because the AI is going to do it all. And instead, what's happened is actually the number of radiology residents has increased and their pay has increased and everything. And the theory behind it, or I guess the hypothesis is that with the influx of these tools, it became more efficient to diagnose things. And so doctors were ordering more tests to be done because it was more efficient to get tests back and then, but ultimately you still needed the person in the loop. You still needed the doctor to like confirm the results or to order follow-ups or to treat after something has actually been diagnosed. And so it may, I think, I don't know that it will lower the, I mean, I know that like our hiring, we're probably going to hire one less, associate in the next 2 years because of it or something to that effect. But ultimately, I think the efficiencies that it adds, I could see a world where our clients are willing to hire us and explore more potential matters that they might have like not considered doing because they know that they can get an efficient answer and not everything is going to be such a cost burden. I think overall, not necessarily at our firm, but overall, you might lower the entry level cost of getting legal advice because you've made it more accessible. And so you are going to need lawyers. I think people might utilize legal services of lawyers and of the courts more because AI is assisting in a way that it hasn't before and make it more accessible to your average person. I think all of that could be,
Democratization of the judicial system and the legal system, yeah.
I am very optimistic about the future of legal education, and I'm very optimistic about the future of legal practice, even with this like AI change. And so before I taught at the University of South Carolina, I taught at St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas. And San Antonio sits just north of the Texas Rio Grande Valley, which is one of our country's most significant legal deserts. You have a lot of attorneys grouped up in Houston and Austin and Dallas, but you have very few lawyers in the Rio Grande Valley, and it means people can't get divorces, people can't write wills, people can't litigate basic claims. And the same is true in South Carolina. There's large sections of the state that are just lacking in legal representation. I'm not super familiar with Missouri, but I'm sure you could probably think of areas of this state that have the same problem. I think there is that large untapped need for legal services. I think historically, lawyers have been difficult to access. We've been very, very expensive, and it has left a lot of unmet need in this country. And I see AI as an ability to help kind of move us into that well. If we can be more efficient, ideally we can take more cases, we can like address some of that need. So I think there's still a lot out there. I think there's opportunities for creative and zealous advocates to really carve out a very bright and exciting future, even with AI in the mix. So I'm bullish on how the future is going to go. Yes.
Thank you, Zoe. The judge yesterday that we had on a panel, Judge Steele, was one of our adjunct professors. He was saying that he thought that he'd read some pro se litigants' briefs that had been produced via AI, and it was an enormous. Remember this, Udit? I'm looking at you. You were there. There he is. I'm sorry, Judge. And I think, am I remembering your point correctly? And I mean that it produces an enormous improvement in the quality of those briefs and therefore likely in the quality of justice that's offered. Can I ask you one more question before we go to the audience for their questions? I had to give a speech when I became the Nickerson Dean, thanks to our National Council Chair, Cash Nickerson, who endowed this deanship. And in that speech, I speculated about the future of the current structure of law firms. I mean, it is amazing to me, as I said then, that we are still billing clients in intervals of 6 minutes, right? And that's the way most law firms continue to operate. Only Arizona allows non-lawyers to own law firms. There's no real opportunity, therefore, for kind of interdisciplinary firms to manage clients' interests from soup to nuts instead of this one vertical that we can manage through a law firm. How do you see, if any, changes in that structure of legal practice as a result of these advancements in artificial intelligence?
I'll start from my perspective is our software is billing software. So we do time entry, expenses, flat fees. And we see all kinds of experiments with law firms trying to figure out how to reorganize how to bill a client and make it profitable and have an increased margin. And they all revert back to the hourly model. I haven't yet seen one firm come up with a flat fee model, and I've seen dozens of them, if not hundreds, that has stuck. They've just tried it with a few clients here and there. So I'm not really sure if the hourly billing model is going to go away anytime soon.
I just don't get why there's been no disruptive innovation. Anyway, Adam. thoughts?
Yeah, well, as long as we're on the hourly billing model, I mean, all this stuff about efficiencies that AI brings is actually to our detriment. One thing I will note on that though, I mean, what we've noticed is our cases are complex enough that when we get to whatever the final event is, whether that's a, summary judgment or a negotiated settlement or trial, we always have a backlog of projects or analyses we would have liked to do, ideas we had. And so we've found with the AI that we've adopted and implemented, we're getting to a lot of those. So we're seeing results from that. We're getting surprising conclusions from analyses that we had kind of backburnered because we just didn't have the time and capacity for it. So I guess that's one way, even in the hourly model, AI is not taking away from our time that we would be billing to the client. We're just able to do more in that time. On the billing model side, we have had clients, not specific to AI, but understanding, the alignment of interests that hourly billing model doesn't really allow for. We have had clients, and I do mostly defense work, ask for alternative fee arrangements in a variety of capacities. And I think it's likely the case. I know people have been saying this though for years, that clients will start demanding more alternative fee arrangements that more closely align their interests with our interests.
Seems to me eventually it's not going to be hourly, it's going to be kilowatt hours, right? Because it's very energy
Tokens. It'll be
intensive.
tokens.
Tokens, exactly. Zoe, you have any thoughts on this?
I have no answer other than that I polled my students on this question when we covered some of the ABA guidance on billing in the AI age, and I asked if they thought the billable hour would go away in light of some of the efficiency gains. As Adam points out, the efficiency is technically to our detriment. And I think it was unanimous. They all said no. They thought the billable hour was here to
Oh
stay.
my God, it's so
we
19th
stayed
century.
committed to it. Yes.
Yeah, okay. We're in the 21st, last I checked. Okay, well, there may be some questions from the audience. If you would be so kind, if you raise your hand, just to tell us who you are so that the panel knows who you are, and then ask your question. Yuda, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Ed. I'm Alvin Stewart, like a research lab here at WashU. I've been looking into like the .com bubble recently because there's been a lot of people paralleling it. So what's going on in AI right now? And there were even there was a law firm in Silicon Valley, Robeck Harrison, that there's an article. It's like a law firm committed suicide because they just took payment in equity rather than like .com bubble companies. But my takeaway has been that the .com bubble kind of just separated the wheat from the chaff. So my question is 5 years from now, looking back, what do you think would have been hype driven and what do you think will have been real?
Hype driven or real?
Real. She said
Yeah,
real.
hype driven or real.
Yeah, everyone's looking at me, of course. 'Cause I agree. I think there's a lot of hype where AI can do everything. And we've all probably seen the meme, we want AI. What do we want it to do? We don't know. When do we want it? Right now. And it took last year when I was here, I was hearing that from my customers a lot. Implement AI. And it took a while for us to figure out how our customers can derive a benefit from that. So from my very subjective perspective, it's what value can my customers get from AI applied to their content? If you give them an open world, they're going to get, Madonna's birthday and how much does an elephant weigh mixed in with other random questions. But if we fine tune our OCRing, our vectorization, how we categorize and index everything that our customers upload into our system, then we can return a higher value product than something that's very broad. And hopefully in 5 years, we won't be the chaff. We'll still be around and be a leader.
So I think there's some key differences with the .com bubble. I'm not super familiar with it. Haven't studied it, but I think the .com bubble, you had a lot of innovation and new players in the .com world. But I don't know that there was the adoption of whatever you would consider the dot-com bubble to have encompassed at like the highest levels of businesses. And so what I mean by that, I mean, I have Fortune 200 clients who have told me that there are enterprise-wide initiatives to use AI to identify efficiencies that can be had. I've talked to others at similarly sized companies who have conveyed that there are companies in that world where in the legal departments, first drafts are no longer allowed to be done without the use of AI as a directive. And so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of failed AI companies. Part of what I talked about earlier, where there are AI, there's sort of an AI for everything, and some are very narrowly focused. I think there's probably a lot that are going to fizzle away. But having used it in practice now, I've used our AI tool probably more than I've used Westlaw in the last, 7 days. The things that I'm able to do that my clients are expecting, and I'm getting requests because we're very transparent about our use, so our clients know we're using it. What I've been asked to do, I wouldn't be able to do without certain AI tools that we're implementing. And I don't think the dot-com bubble, which kind of created capital out of thin air, it didn't offer those real world efficiencies that I think we're seeing in implementing it, I think pretty effectively.
Can I add something to that? I think with AI, you're seeing a completely new economy as well. I mentioned tokens a little bit ago. That's kind of how you trade AI knowledge within the technology, and how do you quantify what a token is and how much a token costs. And that's kind of difficult for someone in my position to do. The other part of the economy is the gigawatt hours. I think Sam Altman, I can't remember the numbers exactly.
By 2030.
Yeah, it was projecting some ridiculous number of gigawatt hours that he needs electricity for. And where's that electricity going to come from? So if we start building and all the infrastructure for the AI technology, I think it's going to have a far wider reach than just, having toys.com or pets.com would.
Yeah, it's a great question. I saw an ad the other day for an AI basketball, and I was like, this has to stop, right? Like it's too much. And I love AI, right? And so if I'm feeling that way, I think I would just echo what my colleagues have said. I actually think we're quite early, but I think in that early phase, we're building, and will we get a contraction in like the legal space? I think so. Like, I think ultimately there will probably be a contraction to, maybe a smaller group of vendors, maybe some very established tools in key practice areas, right? I think there is still a lot of room for practice area specific tools, but I think we're in that building phase because there is just a lot of excitement right now.
And I would just add too, I mean, the other thing you said we're early, it depends really what you classify AI as to say that we're early. I mean, AI is a buzzword right now, but Google's natural language searching that's been around for 2 decades now almost is like, that's AI. It's not generative AI. It's not AI in the sense that the word's being used today, but AI has been, the idea of using technology and computers and to amplify what humans can do without it, like that, there's been a lot of tools that we've been using, and that's not going anywhere. And we're going to continue to want more and more out of it.
A question from online on Zoom. For the panelists, does anyone know how widely used AI is being used for international legal transactions?
I don't.
No, we're comp defense domestic. That's what we're.
No, I don't have a strong sense.
But I think that's an interesting question because it demonstrates how little we know about so many things and so much to write about out there, either in journals or in newspapers or whatever, to help people understand. Like Zoe needs to write us all a study, how to teach with AI.
I will say this, that I have a colleague at South Carolina who does a lot of like international law research, and particularly in Southeast Asia. And he has found tremendous differences in some of the legal research models on their ability to meet that kind of research need. So he has found like Microsoft products, this is just his anecdotal experience, but he thought Microsoft products were like better versed in law from that area of the world than others. So there could be some interesting like distinctions there when you're thinking about the international component.
That'd be a good question for, I can't remember the gentleman's name on the board from Westlaw.
On the, what board? Oh, on the
On the AI
advisory board?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you might have some insight.
he would. We have, by the way, just for anybody in the audience, we have a really impressive AI advisory board for the law school with people from, from technology companies, from law schools, from law firms. And so if you're interested in learning more about that board or joining the board, let us know, because that board is what's advising us going forward along with people like we have here at the table. I'd like to end this session with a question to the panelists real quick. And this actually brings again to mind a conversation I had with Judge Deal yesterday. What is your favorite book about AI? And then what is your favorite science fiction movie that features AI? Starting with you, Christian.
Oh, I am a sci-fi movie geek, so.
Oh,
do
yes, me
android-
too. That's,
Yeah, do androids dream of electric sheep and Blade Runner? Just got chills because I watch that
Oh.
once a month. I think I love that story. Terminator is very close as well. I mean, it's
Okay.
not typical academic AI, but the idea of these autonomous computing entities and what can they do in our culture is fascinating in those two movies and book.
okay, great, perfect. Adam?
I don't know that I have a favorite AI book. I can't think of one. Movie would probably be like Terminator or iRobot. I mean, it's mainly because I think they encapsulate the actual fear that people have about AI, which I don't totally discount, but yeah, it's probably one of those two.
Well, I'm a law professor, so I'm going to give my favorite recent law review article, if that's allowed.
That is a little geeky.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I'm
fine.
gonna lean into the stereotype. I just read a really interesting law review article, and I'm scared I'm gonna get it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's in the Yale Law Journal, and it's written by a former federal judge. And she wrote this kind of piece about like AI personhood that I just thought was really interesting. It kind of goes through the legal history of how we've thought about personhood under the law in the United States, and what that might mean kind of coming up against AI, and what is consciousness, and like how does that come into the equation. And I am on the very like practical side of the AI kind of like area. So that got me thinking in a really interesting way about some of those other issues. Yeah, I got it.
I'll see if I can find that. We'll post it on our website.
Yeah, I have to join with the Terminator for the best AI movie. I gave a talk on a piece of scholarship I wrote, which was about how federal judges should assess when a federal agency uses AI in decision making. Like, how do they like ask questions about that decision? And the opening like slide for my talk is a big image of the Terminator saying that he'll hear your social security disability appeal now. I don't think any of us want that, but yeah.
Pretty good. Well, I think Judge Deal and I just decided yesterday that 2001 was one of the best AI movies and probably the earliest one, right? Because how was AI and pretty threatening. And I would have to
There's
agree
no
with that.
human in the loop there.
There was no human in the loop.
No.
Well, ultimately, remember he started singing Daisy because his brain was being detached. On books, I was the reason that I began this journey at this law school to think about artificial intelligence so deeply was because of a book I read called Life 3.0. We were talking about it last night at dinner, I think, Jonathan. And the first chapter in this book, I recommend this book to you. It's by a guy named Max Tygart, Tygart. The first chapter explains how Prometheus, which is the superintelligence, is able to escape the constraints that the builders of Prometheus have placed around it and escape into the internet and ultimately take over the world. And the story, that narrative, is one of the most compelling pieces of writing I've read lately, and I recommend it. Even if you don't read the rest of the technical book about large language models, just what can happen if a superintelligence decides, not necessarily through consciousness, because I don't think we really understand that, but rather through an effort to achieve the objectives that may be built into the system by the human developers. It's really worth a read. So I just want to recommend that. Well, I want to thank all of you so much for coming. Thank you to Christian, Adam, and Zoe for being here, and we'll see you outside with the cocktail.
Thank you.
Okay?